guys. So I'm trying something new and we'll see how this goes. I'm trying to do this live streaming so that we're on both YouTube and Instagram and that we can kind of reach a number of different people in different places. And today I really wanted to talk a little bit about you and nervous system regulation. I feel like it's such a under talked about or under um, it's not an approach that's really looked at much in functional medicine, or if it is, it's not really people aren't really looking at how it's impacting health in such a significant way, which it really, really is. I see it so much with women. I feel like we're living, not that men aren't stressed out to the gills too, they definitely are. Probably because I work with so many women. I see what's going on, and we are living in the most stressful time in history, the most toxic time in history, and it's really impacting our nervous systems in a really, really profound way. And in turn, it's really doing a number on our hormones, on our energy level, on our ability. Really, at the end of the day, it's just quality of life. And so, if we don't have that, we don't have anything. So I see a lot of people in the functional medicine space. I don't want to be critical because I feel like there's a lot of practitioners really trying to do the best thing for their clients and patients that just maybe aren't aware of how impactful this nervous system regulation piece is with physiology. It's really, really huge. So I feel like what's happening a lot of times in the functional medicine space is very similar to what we see in the conventional medicine space, but it's just with more natural things. And I refer to it as green medicine, where they're taking a lot of things like supplements, and then basically using those to address whatever's going on with somebody's lab work. And sure, it's better, I guess if we're working with a supplement, it's better than maybe a medication or something like that. The problem is that it's not, if you have a nervous system that's dysregulated, it's not really addressing the elephant in the room. And when I say that, there's a lot of energy, resources that go to managing that stress response all of the time. So if we've got this situation where the body is chronically stressed, and when I say chronically stressed, oftentimes it's been really interesting over the years. There are many people that will say, I don't really feel stressed. I think there's a societal idea that it has to be something really catastrophic, like a job loss or a death or, something really crazy going on for people to be stressed. And the fact of the matter is, if you're living in this time in history right now, it's pretty hard not to be chronically stressed. It's the pace of life. It's the toxin exposure. Even I would say that, if you look at what's going on as far as the political climate, it's very, very stressful. We're getting all sorts of bombardment with different news, different places all the time. So even if you don't have what we would consider some sort of catastrophic event going on, there's just chronic stress. And the technology in and of itself really keeps us going at kind of a crazy pace. I think before we had some of this technology availability all the time, there was just built-in downtime that we had that we just don't have anymore. And so there is this push to be productive all the time. And societally, if you rest, the perception is that you're not being super productive, when I would argue that sometimes, because of the pace of life that we're dealing with right now, maybe the most productive thing someone can do is rest. And so there's this push to kind of keep pushing through all the time, even though the body might be really sending some strong signals for a very long time that it needs that rest. And we just keep pushing through. So I know this is something that's very near and dear to my heart, and why I feel so passionate about sharing this. And it's a cautionary tale that you don't want to end up, there's kind of a saying, you want to listen to your body when it whispers so you don't have to, deal with it when it screams. And so if you are starting to kind of sense some of this fatigue that's unrelenting, or not really addressed by getting rest, you're starting to head down a path that really is problematic, and it can be a big, deep hole to dig yourself out of once these symptoms start appearing. So I always share with people, if you're starting to have a lot of these, unrelenting fatigue symptoms, or there's some hormonal imbalances, some things with mood or anxiety or depression, um, maybe even gut issues, that is very much tied to a lot of these things as well. Sleep disturbances, that's a really huge one that I don't think is addressed often enough. Um, and it just impacts quality of life and our ability to thrive when some of these things start happening. But these things have been going on for years and years and years before the symptoms start to appear. There's things going on behind the scenes that have been extremely stressful to the body, that have been going on for a long, long time before some of these symptoms start to appear. So I don't share all of this to make it sound like doom and gloom, because there's lots and lots of hope that I want to give you. There's some really amazing answers once you start understanding something called the cell danger response, and what happens on a cellular level when the body's been contending with chronic stress / trauma for years and years and years. Another thing that I want to mention is that going back to people not thinking that they're stressed, there can be internal stressors going on. There can be maybe if there's something going on with the gut, there can be gut infections that are creating chronic internal stress. Different emotions that somebody's dealing with creates a lot of chronic stress for people as well. And there becomes a new set point for the body where you are operating at your norm, but internally there's a lot of chaos going on. And so I always like to explain that it's not what we think is happening as far as what we think is stressful or not stressful. It's our body's perception of what's happening. And that can look very different, particularly when we're living in a society that's just kind of encouraging us to push through and not really listen and be aware and be mindful. So I think there is some real value in just stepping back and pausing for a moment and really listening to what our body's trying to tell us, and not trying to push through some of these things. So years ago, when I started having some of these symptoms that I'm sharing with you today, my natural inclination was just to kind of push through like I had done before, and that worked. And then it got to a point where that wasn't even working anymore. There was no amount of caffeine that was going to help anymore. Even rest wasn't helping anymore. And so this goes into that cell danger response that I was started to kind of touch on a little bit too, where something really, really incredible happens on a cellular level called the cell danger response, where the body starts to perceive everything as a threat. And so this is where some of this nervous system dysregulation starts to come into play a little bit, where there's a heightened awareness that things that should not be dangerous, the body's perceiving as dangerous, because everything becomes a threat. And so it can go as far as people really starting to be really, really overly sensitive to many different things. It can be food, it can be chemicals, it can be noises, it can be light, and even healthy foods sometimes, or things that you're perceiving, even healthy supplements, things that are actually good, helpful, and supportive for the body starts to perceive as a threat. And that can really be, a huge problem when some of this starts to take hold. And so we have to start working with supportive tools to create resilience in the body and really create a safety. So that's really what it is at the end of the day. The body does not feel safe. And so, because it's being bombarded with all of these other things, whether it be, and that's the interesting piece, is the body does not differentiate between the stressors. So it could be a chemical or environmental stressor, things that are in our food, could be an emotional stressor, a tough conversation, tough relational situation, could be a physical stressor, could be a hard workout. The body does not doesn't differentiate the difference between those things. It could be an infection, an internal infection, like I was talking about, some sort of pain, or all of these things create different types of stress. But at the end of the day, the body really, it puts it in the same bucket, and that starts to overflow. And that's where we see a lot of these issues come into play. So This is where it's really, really important to start building resilience in the body. I always tell our health participants or our clients that I wish I could tell you that life is going to stop being stressful at some point, that these stressors are going to go away, and that there's never going to be any problems anymore. Unfortunately, that's not how life works. So, what we really are aiming to do is to build capacity and resilience. And once we start doing some of that, that takes a lot of the burden off of the body. And then the body uses those resources, whether it's nutrition, supplements, energy, and it starts being able to focus on healing or hormone balancing instead of managing that stress response all of the time. So I just wanted to kind of give a little background about why nervous system regulation is so important. And I think for a lot of people, I don't know if you're like this, I was in a period of time where I kind of knew internally I was very stressed, but I just didn't know what to do about it. Okay, I'm trying to do breath work, or some of this stuff seemed kind of silly, and I didn't really see the value in that. And then going back to, we are in such a time in society where you're really encouraged to push through, and it's almost perceived as weakness sometimes, which is just really unfortunate, to kind of step back and rest, or really be mindful about what's going on with our bodies. And so you really almost have to, even that can be a stressor for some people. I know it was for me to start shifting into, hey, I am not a lazy person. So if I'm this tired, there's a reason behind it, and start to really give yourself some grace, as I had to learn to do in order to really understand what was happening and start to be able to support the body in a way that was really, really helpful. So one of the examples that I use is I was, like this crazy workout person that was just pushing through really, really hard all the time. And then I just hit a wall at one point and crashed, and really was not able to do much of anything at all. Even just simple exercise was really a struggle. And so because I had taken all of this, pushing through to the point where my body basically gave out, that goes back to the cautionary tale I tell, like, you don't want it to get to that point, because I really had to back off on the workouts because I couldn't physically do what I was able to do before. So one of the things that I implemented several years ago, and it's been just profoundly impactful and profoundly helpful, is just getting outside in nature every day. And going for walks. And so, the old me that was this hard push through workout person would have laughed about somebody going for a walk and considering that a workout, but it falls into this category of somatic exercises, somatic experiencing, and is extremely, extremely beneficial, not only from a physical standpoint, but from an emotional standpoint. It really does start to help regulate the nervous system. And so I don't go with any earbuds. I just am listening to the sounds in nature. I'm hearing the birds, and it's absolutely wonderful. And it doesn't have to be much. I always say it's something's better than nothing workout. So when you start implementing these sorts of things on a regular basis, these are the things that start sending signals of safety to the body. So that's just one of many tools that you can work with to kind of help support the nervous system and what's happening there. But I do want to share with you too, just some of the importance of doing some of these things, and the importance of recognizing how damaging some of this cultural norms, some of this cultural expectations really are to our health. In fact, when I look around sometimes and I see the food supply, the pace of life, all of these societal expectations, it's just really setting people up to really have a poor quality of life. The conventional medical system, all of those things are not things that are really supportive of a really vibrant quality of life. And so it takes intentional effort to really look at some of these things and say, this is not working. There's got to be a better way. And so my heart, my hope and prayer always is to cultivate a community of people that really embrace this. Sure, we like to work hard and really create some amazing purpose and goals in life, but there's also a balance with really making sure that we have downtime and